You would be forgiven if you were excited about the signing of Eberechi Eze to Arsenal. He's somebody who lifts the creativity burden on Bukayo Saka and completely changes the way Arsenal can set up tactically. In today's video, we will be looking at the positives of Eberechi Eze and the negatives and how he could impact Arsenal going forward. A great place for us to start with Eberechi Eze is his player profile. He's 27 years of age, born in 1998, 147 Premier League appearances with 34 goals and 23 assists, and of course he's an English international. He has the ability to play off the left and he can play in the 10 as well. So let's talk about the positives first. I think it's always great when you know what a player is good at, and Eze has really good ball carrying, whether that be from deeper areas or higher up the pitch. Eberechi Eze has the ability to really take on players from those areas and drive with the ball. He's an incredible shooter from outside the box. I think he's one of the most efficient shooters in the Premier League. We'll look at some stats later on that. He's very good 1v1, has a certain quality that you need to have when you're taking on players that not many other players have, and he has a good passing range. I think that's something which people don't really talk about enough when it comes to Eberechi Eze. His incredible passing range from shorter distances and longer distances. So let us start looking at that carrying ability, and I think one of my favourite carries from Eberechi Eze from last season has to be the one against Tottenham. As we look at his progressive carries, 9 out of 58 of his progressive carries ended up into a successful progressive pass. That is very good. 15.5% of Eze's carries ends up with a pass forward. So let's get on to that Tottenham carry, and here it is. Eberechi Eze, this is my favourite carry from him, because not only does it show somebody that's able to relieve the pressure by driving from deeper areas, but it also shows his incredible passing range. The technique on that pass allows Ismaila Sarr not to break stride. And when we're talking about Arsenal and translating to Arsenal, Eberechi Eze is going to translate perfectly. Having that empathy on the ball to know, okay, it's Sarr running. What does he need to be able to approach the goal in the best way possible? He needs it on his right foot, his stronger foot. And Eberechi Eze, that sort of understanding, it doesn't come easy to just everyone. And of course, in terms of this carry, it comes from a situation where Palace are actually defending. We're looking at Old Trafford as a very good example of this, whereby Arsenal weren't able to break out of some pressure situations because they didn't have that sort of player to carry the ball out. That's the simple reality of things. Somebody that's able to take the ball from your side of the pitch onto the opposition side of the pitch. And what's really impressive with this carry, which of course I can't really show you, is that it ended up in a goal. Eze's engine is quite underrated as well. He was able to play this pass and then run forward to then receive it again and score. And of course, it's not just longer distant carries, it's shorter distant carries. It's small carries inside the pitch and then the release. This one for England, where there's a lot of star players on the pitch, Eze's still able to show his quality. That weight of pass after the small carry inside is incredible. I said it just earlier, it's that empathy on the ball, the understanding of who is running forward. I always remember a sort of quote which my dad actually tells me about Thierry Henry, and knowing, okay, I need to make this sort of run if Bergkamp has the ball, and this sort of run when Ljungberg has the ball. Eze knows his players. He knows what is needed for certain runners, and that's why he has such a good relationship with Mateta and Sarr. He knows the sort of balls they need to be able to go and approach goal. And, you know, I'm thinking about it in terms of Arsenal Football Club. Against Manchester United, it's the only game that I have evidence for. Ødegaard will receive the ball in some wonderful positions, and I'm not attacking Ødegaard. I think he's a wonderful footballer. But it's that killer instinct, it's that understanding of who is running next to you, which can really dictate whether a chance happens. And this one here against Manchester United towards Gyökeres, it's not good enough. The weight of pass is poor. It takes Gyökeres away from goal, and I can't help but think Eberechi Eze in this position, he has a lot more empathy on his pass. He knows which foot Gyökeres wants to receive the ball in, and that becomes a much more dangerous opportunity. Here is another example, a deeper carry, the one I showed against Tottenham. Here's Ødegaard sort of attempting it. It's knowing when to release the ball, who's running in through the middle, and what they need. And I will admittedly say, the runs from Martinelli and Saka here are really poor. but you can only make runs knowing who's on the ball. And I'm sure there's this recognition from Saka and Martinelli that we need to make this run because Ødegaard has it. With Eze, you can only focus on your run because you'll know he'll find you. You can do any sort of run and expect Eze to make that pass. And that just goes to show Eze's incredible passing range, but his understanding of the players that he's playing with. And this one is really good. A carry from Eze resulting in a dangerous opportunity. And it goes back to that stat I showed you at the beginning of the video. Carries into progressive passes, but carries into shots. Eze is one of the best statistically when it comes to that. And this was a wonderful one in pre-season from a central area, driving and taking a lovely chip. Here's another one against Liverpool 2 seasons ago. He carries inside. Look, Zaha makes a run he knows he needs to make. He doesn't even think about who's on the ball because he knows if it's Eze, he'll find me. I don't have to think too much about who is on the ball and what I need to do for them to be able to find me. Just focus on your run. And this is where I'm sort of talking about the likes of Zubimendi and Gyökeres genuinely thriving with Eberechi Eze in the side. We're talking about Zubimendi, somebody that can find passes into the pockets. He's a much more vertical passer, meaning he's more likely to play a ball inside the pitch rather than out wide. And that's going to suit Eberechi Eze as he wants to roam inside the pitch a lot more. As with Victor Gyökeres, the timing has to be key. We need to give him decisive touches, and I've talked about this before. Allow Gyökeres to have a minimal amount of touches before he takes a shot on goal. And that all comes from the type of pass he receives. With Eberechi Eze, the passes he will receive will be ones which will allow him to be in areas to take shots on and to take shots a lot more quick. So when we're talking about Eze and translation to Arsenal, I feel like Zubimendi and Gyökeres will definitely thrive the most with this signing. And I want to talk about Eberechi Eze in terms of from a central position, if he was to take on the Ødegaard role. And one thing which I haven't really liked about Ødegaard is his inability to make underlaps. And this is not me again digging at Martin Ødegaard, because he's not that sort of player. You either have the sniff for it or you don't, and Ødegaard doesn't. We're thinking about sort of areas where Bukayo Saka's on the ball and Martin Ødegaard is stationary. Here, the blue, as I hit my mic, that's where Ødegaard should make a run. Into that little channel, a player who is an attack-minded will make a run like that, and Saka would have more options. Here's another one, here against Tottenham in pre-season. Saka has the ball, Ødegaard needs to be making that underlap. He stays stationary, and that run is covered. With Arsenal, we have to have different ways to break down rigid defenses. And having somebody to do those underlaps would be so key. And I'm going to show you an example of it, of Eberechi Eze. This one is against Leeds. And look, Elise has the ball. Look where Eze is. And I'll tell you one thing. Eze started this move. He put the ball out to Elise, and then he has the know-how. He has the sniff for the goal to then go forward and to try and score. You know, and again, I'm not digging at Ødegaard. You either have this sort of desire and this energy towards scoring, or you don't. But this makes Elise's job so much easier. The pass isn't a difficult pass at all. Saka can do that pass. It's about having that player who's willing to run beyond. And it's not just there. This one was from last season. Wharton wins the ball back quickly. Look at Eberechi Eze. He's already on his bike. He already sniffs the opportunity to get forward. And I know this is from a wider position, but it doesn't even matter. These qualities, it doesn't matter whether you're left wing, whether you're central. And this is why I get quite annoyed with Arsenal fans when we're talking about Eberechi Eze, whether he's going to play centrally or off the left. These qualities are transferable no matter what position he's in. That ability, that sniff to make the run is incredible. And of course, he wins that ball and he sets it back to Mateta, who scores brilliantly. That running beyond is probably one of Eze's most underrated attributes in terms of he's able to also receive the ball to feet, but he's also able to receive it after making a run. And making a run, it doesn't mean he needs to get the ball, because he will leave space. If Eze doesn't receive the ball, he'll sort of leave space for somebody else to take it up. And that's how you beat these low and mid blocks, by having movers, people who are willing to run beyond. And Eze will do that centrally, but he'll also do that from wider positions. And in terms of really good statistics about Eberechi Eze, we've got to talk about his other positives, is his shooting from outside the box. Only 4 Premier League players have scored 5+ goals from outside the box across all competitions since the start of last season. Eberechi Eze with 5. Kovacic with 5, Matheus Cunha with 6, and Bruno Fernandes with 6. So look at the company he is in. Eberechi Eze also had more shots from outside the box in the opening Premier League weekend against Chelsea than any other player. See, this quality to be able to open up the opposition with shots outside the box is needed. Arsenal need that maverick, that person who's willing to take on shots, because it's just going to be such a help against certain structures, and it adds a different weapon, because I think he's one of the most accurate and efficient shooters there is in the Premier League. And one thing I want to talk about is how Eze fixes his opponent and his 1v1 dribbling. What makes a good dribbler is somebody able to have their body in a certain way so the defender can't predict which way they go. And Eberechi Eze is so good at this. This is the example against Fulham. He fixes Anderson. He makes his sort of dribble in a way where Anderson cannot swing his body in a certain way and no Eze will go there. He can go right, he can go left. And when you're coming from the touchline, when you're approaching a 1v1, you need that unpredictability. And Arsenal missed that from anyone other than Bukayo Saka out wide. Noni Madueke is very good 1v1, but Eze is a different sort of player in terms of he's so much better in terms of 1v1, fix your opponent and get a quality ball into the box. And this is what I really enjoy about Eze and why I think he can be so effective off the left-hand side. But hey, we've talked a lot of positives. Let's get into a bit of negatives. And I think Eberechi Eze has an over-reliance on his out-of-the-box qualities. So sometimes he'll opt for the shot outside the box when there's a simpler pass on. And this may be take him some time, especially at Arsenal, in terms of acclimatizing to rotating the ball. And people always talk about our U-shaped football, but Eze will need to adapt to that, but also add his qualities to that U-shaped football in terms of knowing, okay, I don't need to have to take the shot on. I can remain patient and find other people in and around to break this block. He's also a hot and cold finisher in the box. So as one of the best shooters outside the box, Eze, for me, he's very hot and cold in terms of taking his chances in the box. He's not going to be a difference maker in the box like your Rodrigo's. He's not awful, but he's not as consistent. Maybe he could develop that over time with more chances that he'd get at Arsenal, but it's certainly not one of his strengths. And he's also not the most manipulative player in tight spaces. So if it's really crowded, Eberechi Eze will struggle. But one thing about Eze is he'll release the ball before it gets to that situation. So most of these negatives are negated by playing for Arsenal because he will just have that know-how to play a pass through. And of course, we need to talk about how Eze would line up. And I've said multiple times, it doesn't matter whether he's central or out wide, the qualities are transferable. So where Arsenal could set up like this, Eze with Calafiori on the left-hand side. I feel like Calafiori will be the one to work with Eze best because of dynamism, because he's a maverick, because he combines a lot better. He can overlap better than Lewis Skelly. He's just more of a mover around the final third, and he'd allow Eze to come inside the pitch a lot more. And I feel like Arsenal fans get it wrong. Yes, Arteta wants you to be on the touchline, but I feel like we overstate it. You can come inside. You can find the spaces. He allows that freedom. The coach's job essentially is to progress the ball to the final third. Then it's up to your good players to find solutions. And Eze is a solution finder. You can have Ødegaard in there and of course Gyökeres with Havertz's current injury, because I feel like the out of possession stuff from Ødegaard is going to be very valuable, especially without Havertz in the lineup. You can also line up like this: Eze, Martinelli and Madueke out wide, or Calafiori next to Madueke and Martinelli out wide, and drop Ødegaard. That is what I think the long-term vision is. Eze will usurp that central zone when Arsenal are confident enough, whether in Madueke, whether in Martinelli, whether in a new winger next season. I think it will only be a matter of time until Eze takes that role on. But then again, you've got to think about Ethan, and there's just a lot to think about. But I think it's such a privileged position for Arsenal to be in, to have so many quality players to choose from. But anyway, Gunners, that's it for now. Hope you have enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching my first video on this channel.